Welcome guys, Naz is here. I just wanted to talk with you about some tips and tricks in Star Renegades, which will make your experience a little bit better than mine. I thought I'm gonna die. Oh wait, I'm gonna die, no! I didn't break him. Now, before we start, if you haven't finished the tutorial and haven't played even once, you'd better close this video now. For others, this video will have two parts. First one with 2 essential tips, but there will be a lot of boring stuff. And the second part will consist of small and quick tips, so if you don't want to listen to boring parts, skip ahead to this time. Number 1. Don't attack when it's not necessary. You may say, "No shit, Sherlock, I already know that stuff." You dumbass. Hey now, don't need to be rude. Let me explain. As you know, the main and the most important thing in this game is obviously a timeline, and how to manipulate characters within it. That said, you should always pay attention to this number right next to the enemy portrait. As you know, it shows how many times you can push a character through the timeline and potentially kick him or her out of the round. It's called a push timer. You will have a lot of situations when some of your characters will be able to do a not important move, so to speak. For example, you have whatever composition you've picked and let's say an Archon. One of the enemy units has only 1 tick on his push timer. You choose one of your characters to push him further and break the enemy out of the timeline. You give orders to other characters except for your beloved Archon. Shields are full, you don't need to shred the armor. So, what do? Well, you may think, just do a discharge AoE blast. At first glance, it's a logical move, but it's not. The thing is that his discharge indeed does AoE damage, but it also pushes the enemy through the timeline and makes the push timer tick. Why should I care, you may ask? Well, as you know, when the push timer shows 0, you can't kick characters out of the round, and they will act unless you stun them. But that's a really valuable resource, so we don't want to waste it, right? So yes, you added extra 20 to 30 damage, but in the next round, an enemy unit will act, which brings more problems. It is especially true during the boss fights, when pushing characters out of the round is a main key to win the fight. So sometimes it's better to just press a defense button. On the other hand, attacks which don't push could be used in the situations mentioned before. Attacks like Flurry, for example. You do extra damage and you don't mess up enemies' push timers. You can check if attack can push or not by looking at this icon. Now, keep in mind that it is all situational. Sometimes you'll want to utilize your weapons to the fullest. And let's say you want to apply a debuff or a status effect, like chill or rattled, vulnerable or corrupted. So sacrificing 1 tick on the push timer could be beneficial. To summarize everything mentioned above, I want you to be more conscious about your own actions. Don't attack just because you can. Number 2, don't forget about the attack speed. This is connected to the first tip we talked about. Some of your characters will have a higher attack speed, meaning they will act faster than your other characters on the timeline. Sometimes enemies will have only a few ticks on their push timer. You give orders to your slower characters and then forget that, let's say, an Archon is way faster than his buddies. If you forget about that, it can ruin your whole round because Archon will interfere with your own plans. So always keep in mind the attack speed of your characters and double check where they will be on the timeline. So now when we're done with important and boring stuff, let's talk about some more things. If you skip the boring part, don't worry. You're actually the smart one. You're gonna easily get wins even without those essential tips. If you see a lockdown key icon on the tile, then you will see it spreading to its adjacent or neighboring tiles. Also, so far nobody knows how to trigger a side dungeon, but for the first planet it happens mostly in a rocky terrain, while on the second planet it happens on a tile with a temple on it, and on the third planet it happens on a factory tile. Armor shredding is a really important component to many skills. Having at least one good armor shredding character or item is essential during boss fights, especially on higher difficulties. If you're a weakling and you don't want to get hit, fear not, my Archon friend. Use the stun. Not only it will save your pretty face, but also will force an enemy to use another ability. Debuffs on increased damage taken wouldn't apply during the planning stage, meaning you could kill the target in the execution stage, but during the planning stage it may not show a killshot icon. I'm talking about effects like irradiated, weak defense, vulnerable. Do not buy all items in the shop. Most of the items are really bad. It will potentially clog your item pool and increase the chances to get garbage items during the run. If an enemy is resistant or weak to a specific type of attack, like light, normal, or heavy, it will affect not only damage but also your ability to push a character through the timeline. Enemy is resistant, you'll push it and damage less. Enemy is weak, you'll push and damage more. Starting on Planet 2, you will encounter cowards who will hide behind the backs of their brothers in arms. Typical Archons, I would say. How can we get them? Well, abilities with this icon, or items with reach modifiers, is the answer. If you have an elemental weapon like Pyro or Nitro, and you want to apply some debuffs like Mark or Rattled, Weakened Defense and others, you won't be able to do it if the enemy has the shields, since both Pyro and Nitro effects are blocked by the shields. That said, if you can bypass this restriction by having even a tiny shield penetration, then you will be able to apply all the debuffs. Do not use flurry attacks on the counterattacks. Those ones like Cover Fire, Vengeance Stance, Overwatch, and other similar ones have an icon with 2 crossed swords. You may not trust me, but then type the results of your experiments with a flurry and a counter in the comments. If I can't kill a unit during a round, then I tend to focus units with a guard ability. Reason is that if you lower HP and not kill a unit, then he will be protected by a guard ability on the next turn, and the amount of guard breaking abilities or stuns is limited. And last but not least, be aware of summoners.
No! No! Is that... It's not him! What is this?
Please no, dude.
No, dude, it's him!
Alright, here's the list of other tips which couldn't get into the video due to technical issues, and not because I'm hungry. Well, that's it for now. I hope those tips will help you to get a win, and have a good one. Peace!